I think that if you were making a statement about should a couple get together that are both sculptors or both painters or both printmakers, you'd probably say there could be dangers in getting together, because particularly if one is a stronger personality than the other. I think we I think we balance each other out, and I think both having our own work ethos and our own ideas and have developed our own language, we both come in a very strong position, and that's why we can work well with each other and counteract and balance, because we both have an inner sense about what it is we want to do.
I think that when we got the fact that we got together when we were both fully formed is the big difference. Because Bernard's older than me.
By a few years.
By a few years. If I had met Bernard when I was young, I don't know, obviously I can't tell what would have happened, but in terms of my work. But I think it might not have been so good for me. I mean, it might have made it better, who knows, but it wouldn't have perhaps given me a chance to really, you know, kind of explore who I am more fully. Perhaps I would have been more influenced. It's really hard to know.
I'm not sure if it had been on the other foot, that if Wendy had already been out there making art, and I'd been the younger and emerging artist, I think in some ways I may have done what Picasso's father did and put me brushes down.
No, you wouldn't. No,
I don't know.
No, you wouldn't.
A great admiration for what you do,
No,
but
you
the
would
fact
not.
that I'm already there and already doing things, and have already had 30 solo exhibitions, etc., means that I'm already out there working and know my place.
We moved into this studio in 2002, so quite a long time now, 6 years would be. Yeah.
For me, coming in here, it was an incredible space to have, and at first I was unsure as to how it would work out, because I've never been in a situation before where I could literally put up the whole exhibition on one wall. I could even start a next exhibition on another wall.
They are like his and hers studios. They're two warehouses back to back, so they're private because, like most artists, I can't work with someone else in the room. You need to be private so you can go into your own world. But the great thing is that we have our own space, but then we can also meet and have lunch together or have coffee or ask each other's advice. So we can visit, but we can also have our own area to work in. But I enjoy having Bernard in the next room because we can give each other advice, and some of the strengths that Bernard has, which I think is particularly composition and things like that, are things that I really would like some advice on. And I know that he understands what I'm doing and I understand what he's doing. Although our work is different, because we'd already evolved into artists when we met, there's enough in common for us to really relate to each other. You know, the narrative, it's figurative.
Yeah. I've also enjoyed that link between walking into Wendy's space and being inspired by what she does, and having that critique, that discussion that we've had with each other.
There's a painting I'm working on at the moment, and I was halfway through it, and wasn't sure what to do, so I asked Bernard to come and have a look. And he came and said, you know, the head is too big and the figure's face is wrong, and, which was something I really did know, but I was trying to convince myself that it was all right, as you do, until you actually have to face it. And someone else coming in and pointing out something you already know is a problem can be a help, a big help.
What I hope Wendy will say is, there's not much wrong with it. It's just a little thing here with the hands, or something like that, because what you don't need to know is the main figure is centrally located is wrong, because you know that means a lot of work.
Again, or do another one.
And if you've got a seed of doubt yourself, and Wendy reinforces that for me, I think, yes, I knew this was the case. I heard what I didn't want to hear, but I had to hear. So I've started again. I think that my natural inclination or interest is to see what things look like halfway up a ladder or hanging on the side of a rope swinging through the space. I'm just interested in catapulting the viewer into the space in a very interesting, challenging way that you can't escape from. I think it's more interesting if we're tossed right into the action than we are if we're many steps removed. I think it's more interesting to be involved in all the different things that are going on.
I paint a lot of self-portraits, and I also paint what I call semi-self-portraits, which are sort of me. There's ones that I know are me, and they're usually, I don't care whether they really look like me. They usually vaguely have my hairstyle, and usually they're an artist. So that's me. Sometimes they're sort of me, even, and I'm not worried about the likeness. But I usually do have a female protagonist in my paintings. So I said before that it's like the way most, not all, but most novelists have the main character in their book as their own sex. So a lot of women write a book with the female character being the main one, often, and because I can identify with her. So they vary from being me to being, someone I relate to.
When I first arrived to give a talk at the New South Wales Art Gallery, I think it was called Defining Moments, and I thought, and it's about an artist that you really like that has changed what you do, and I thought, I know who I'd choose. I'll choose Edward Munch. Nobody else will choose Edward Munch. And I rang through and said, I've chosen Edward Munch. And they said, a person called Wendy Sharpe has already chosen that person. And I thought, in some ways, that kind of sums up why we probably should have come together, because I wouldn't have thought anybody else would have chosen that.
When I was about 19, I would have definitely said Edvard Munch was my favourite painter. I still like him, but I wouldn't probably put him first now, even though I still like them. But certainly he was very important to me, when I was younger. And when I got a scholarship in my 20s, I went to Norway and went to see all those museums and things, which Bernard also did as a young Bernard.
From time to time, I need to talk to Wendy about something at work. Maybe this is art politics. Generally speaking, I want to clear my head of that when I come to the studio or when I come home. So I tend to leave all that behind me and come in and therefore start working. So I'm more likely to see her paintings as I walk in the door and talk about those, or want to do that. And if Wendy says, what's happened at work today, I'll say, not much, and I'll move on. Because in the beginning, all around me is making art is the most important thing I do, and all the other things are satellites around that.